to Barzella Papa, Presidency of the Community Foundation, to kick us off. So Barzella.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Perfect. All right. Takes me a minute to get set up here. Thank you so much for joining us. So I'm going to take this next part and kind of talk about how to vet organizations, some of the things that we do here at the Community Foundation whenever we're reviewing organizations that we are directing grants to. And I've heard a few, I heard Charity Navigator, and that's excellent. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about Charity Navigator and some resources and some tools that you can use whenever you're evaluating your charitable giving. And then I'll turn it back over to Leslie to do a deeper dive into the hub. So some of the things that we recommend, as far as how to vet, we always recommend first thing is, visiting the organization's website and look for and really evaluate their transparency. When you go to their website, there really should be financial information available. Perhaps a copy of their 990 can be found on their website, or their audited financial statements. Is their leadership listed? Is the staff listed? And if there's any red flags, then proceed with caution. Now, their history is the other thing too. See if that is on their website. You can check for a social media presence. That doesn't necessarily tell you how effective the organization is, because there's many small shops doing great work, and they're stretched thin and they don't really have time for social media. But the website is critical, that they are being transparent. We'll spend a little more time talking about audits in a minute, so I don't want to go too much into that. Not all organizations are going to have an independent audit report. Some may have a financial review, which that is acceptable as well. But the 990 is really critical. Is that on their website, or how you can access it? The other thing that we recommend too is to conduct a site visit. Go and visit the organization. See, what they're doing in their programs. Or you can get involved by volunteering. And if it's an organization that you've been involved with, perhaps you might consider board service at some level as well. That'll definitely give you the inside look on vetting the organization. And then we're going to talk a little more about national and local resources. So let's go to the next one. Leslie is the master slide advancer for me. So 990s, I just want to touch on this briefly. Every nonprofit organization has to file a 990. So this is required by the IRS, and there's three types based on the size of the organization. So small organizations that have less than 50,000 should be filing a Form 990N. An EZ, a 990 EZ, is for organizations with receipts between 200,000 to 500,000, or up to the 500,000 mark. They should be filing a 990 EZ, and all others should be filing the Form 990, which is really long. And we'll talk about a few things that you should look at on their 990. Now, believe it or not, we have a number of organizations that have missed their tax filings, and they do face large penalties from the IRS when they do that. Again, in that vetting process, you want to visit their website and make sure that their 990 is visible. Or if not, I'll give you some resources, some other places that you can look to see if they're filing on time. So when you are looking at the 990, here's a couple of key things that you want to look for when you're combing through, and this really helps with the efficiency and the sustainability of an organization. One critical thing that you want to look for, and these are all required questions on the 990. The first one: is the board member, or is the board reviewing the 990 before filing? It's required that all board members do. So if they are marking no, that's a yes/no answer. No would be a red flag. If they answer yes, what's their process for reviewing the 990s? Because the board's, legal obligation is to the organization, so they should be all at least reviewing the 990. The next one is a conflict of interest policy. You want to make sure on their 990 that they have a conflict of interest policy, and that is being reviewed annually, that each board member is disclosing if there's a conflict, and how is it monitored. So, that conflict of interest is going to help prevent any self-dealing with board members. So you want to look to see that an organization has that. A whistleblower policy, that's the other. Do they have one? We're going to be looking for a yes, that they have that in place as a checks and balance to be able to address any fraudulent activity within the organization. And then 3 other things, you can look to see if they have a document retention policy or destruction. Again, these are questions on the 990. The next one we get a lot of questions on is the compensation. Is there a process for reviewing the CEO? And if yes, what is that process? So again, compensation is another big item to look for on that tax return. And then finally, local chapters or branches or affiliates. Why is that important? Because some organizations are under a larger umbrella, like take, for example, PACE. Our local PACE center is actually part of the statewide PACE center. So theirs going to look completely different. If you go looking for their 990, you're not going to find it because they're under the statewide umbrella. Same is true for our local Girl Scouts. That's going to be out of Jacksonville. And Boys and Girls Club, that one's going to be out of Jacksonville. So don't be alarmed if you try to find the local 990. It's under another umbrella. So go ahead, Leslie. We'll talk a little bit about audits, and I'll share a personal story of the foundation here from years and years and years ago. So first of all, an audit is a financial review conducted by an external CPA, and they're not required by the IRS. However, in the state of Florida, it is required that if you get less than a review is required for contributions if you are taking in more than $500,000, and an audit is required if you are receiving more than $1 million annually in contributions. So we actually, years ago, there was someone that had relocated to the area and they wanted to create a fund at the foundation. And they reached out to the foundation. They asked to see our audited financials, which we had never done at the time. And they refused setting up anything with us because we had never audited our financials. So it is really important that an organization, and it doesn't have to be done every year necessarily, but at least every 2 to 3 years, that an external person is coming in and measuring the controls. Again, is checks and balances. Go ahead, Leslie. Okay, so I know we touched on a little bit with here's some national organizations and some resources for you. I know we mentioned Charity Navigator, and I'll do a little deeper dive here. So Charity Navigator, I really like that website a lot. It was created in 2001, so it's 20 years old now, by a wealthy philanthropist who wanted to really ensure transparency of organizations. And this has become one of the largest in the nation and most utilized evaluations of organizations. Last year alone, 11 million donors used it as a resource to vet organizations. So organizations are evaluated based on their 990 information, and they have a star rating system, so 1 through 4. And they did a few years ago open it up so that organizations can also add information. So it's not solely 990, but it's a really in-depth site that they really measure the sustainability of an organization from a financial standpoint and whether or not their programs are having an impact. So it's really great. So if you get a chance, and it's free, it's completely free for you to use. I think they have about 10,000 organizations. So not all organizations are going to be in there. They kind of have a weird selection process. We just finally made Charity Navigator, I believe last year or at the end of 19, and we'll share that in a moment. Another great resource is great nonprofits. That would be another one that you can use, that this is a user review of nonprofits. So you're going to be hearing from the end users from those nonprofits in that database. GuideStar, I know GuideStar, I think, is probably one of the oldest, and it is the largest. It has over 2.5 million nonprofit organizations in that site. Now, GuideStar, you can look up profiles. You'd have to create an account. You can look up profiles for free. However, if you go to access their 990, because their 990s are typically stored with their profiles there, you can only do so many that you can actually look at their 990, and then you're going to have to start paying. And it's a pretty, they have a pretty expensive subscription price to look at that. But GuideStar utilizes a seal system, seals of transparency, and there's 4 levels. The bottom being bronze. So you'll see a bronze seal, then the next one is silver, gold, and the highest is platinum. And what those seals tell you is how transparent is the organization, how transparent they're being, and their information that they're sharing with GuideStar. So an organization that just has a bronze seal has basically just shared their contact information, their mission statement, and their location in the programs. You know, who do they serve in some of their programs. As you go up the rankings, so silver, they're adding their financial information. Gold, they're adding their programs and more detailed information. And then finally, platinum, which is the highest, they actually are having to go in and describe what their value is. So GuideStar, again, that's another go-to. That is actually the system that we use when we get ready to issue a grant here, is they have to be verified in GuideStar. And then finally, Charity Watch. Charity Watch is going to be more of your national organizations, and they release an annual grade. So they all have either stars or seals or grades, but they release grades annually. And again, usually those are your national organizations. Go ahead, Leslie. So here we'll just show you quickly, as I said, we were so excited to finally get rated on Charity Navigator. We came in at a 3 out of 4 stars. We had 2 things in our 990 that we needed to address. So we've already done that, and they will review ours again whenever we file our next 990 will be reviewed, and we should get our 4th star at that point. But that's kind of what it looks like when you go. There's more detail down the page. And then the next one is our GuideStar that you'll just see. And I don't see the seal on this one, but if you go to, if you're looking it up, you'll see, I think we have a platinum seal on GuideStar. So that's just kind of what it looks like. What do we have next? Oh, there we go. Perfect. So I'm going to turn it over to Leslie now. So let's do a deep dive into the local resource, our philanthropy hub, for you.
Perfect. Thank you, Barzella. So this is a new system the Community Foundation launched in 2020. So it's the same idea of those GuideStar, like Barzella mentioned, but really just local for our nonprofits here in North Central Florida. And so this is, we'll go into some more detail. We launched in early 2020. And so we have had a slower launch than expected due to the pandemic, but we are getting nonprofits onboarded now. There are 105 reporting requirements for nonprofits. So each nonprofit creates their own profile and they self-report. And the Community Foundation goes in and verifies their information for the user, which is potential donors, funders looking for these organizations' transparency. The financials are automatically populated from the IRS website. We currently have 114 organizations registered. And the end goal is to help you really build capacity of the organizations. The Community Foundation is able to use this to notice maybe reporting requirements that aren't being completed, that maybe organizations don't have. We can provide trainings. It really helps build capacity for transparency for our nonprofits. And then of course provides that to donors and funders to use this information. Since the beginning of the year, really towards the fall this year, we have been able to use all the profiles in our system to help the Children's Trust grant their first round of grant funding out to organizations. They use the verification process within our hub. We also worked with the county to distribute CARES Act funding to local nonprofits, verifying organizations within the hub, and really provide less work for the nonprofits to do, as they were able to just provide this information once for both those organizations and both of those funders. We are working with UF for some of the data that's in the system, and I'm going to dive in the system in a minute so you're able to see it, but we are partnering with UF. We currently have a grad student helping us who's also using some of the data for her information, and we're partnering with some faculty as well. And then of course we hope to partner with more local funders to really expedite the grant making process in our community. And there are several other communities, or quite a number of, that use this database, and it's something that the Community Foundation of Barzella have been watching for years, trying to figure out how to get that to our community, and we were provided the resources to bring that to our community last year. So I'm going to get out of here because I want to show you what the hub looks like. So a thumbs up, everybody can still see my screen. Great. So this is what the Philanthropy Hub looks like. So it's open. Anyone can go visit this site. You can see it's the philanthropyhub.org. And once you get here, you can search for organizations. You can do it one way. You can go in the search button and search your favorite local organization, or you can go to find organizations and view all, and you can view all the organizations within the Philanthropy Hub. So if we search, I'm going to use the Community Foundations page as a sample while we're going through it. So I find the Community Foundation, I click on their profile, and here's the profile. So this profile was completed by us, or if it's another nonprofit, it's completed by that nonprofit organization. So you'll see the first thing you notice is that this organization has been verified by the Community Foundation. And so you click on it. What this means is that all of the information has been reviewed by staff at the Community Foundation and really meets the standard of somebody the Community Foundation would fund, that has full transparency to donors in our community. And we're working with other funders to make sure that it meets their criteria as well, so that they are able to expedite grant making in the future and really just go straight to their needs and not necessarily verify their organization's eligibility. So this first page, just a contact page. I'll go through the tabs really quickly. Some information you'll find on the hub is mission statement, brief history. It's stuff you can find on their website, but at this point, you don't have to search for it. It's all going to be right here, and every page is going to look the same. So the brief history, our strategic goals, and then our areas of need. So I wanted to share with you the areas of need. So I'm going to flip over here. This is the YMCA's profile. And so I wanted to share their profile, and you'll see that they're expired because they are in the middle of re-verifying. So organizations have to come in and complete all this information once a year to make sure it's up to date. So many of our organizations, that process happens in January. So they are going through that verification process right now. So I wanted to point out their page because I wanted to show you their areas of need. So every organization, they change this. Many change this on a quarterly basis. Right now you can see that they have a financial need for facilities. They really have a need for volunteers in these specific areas. And they have some program needs for helping teens and seniors participate in virtual activities. So these needs do change, and it's something that funders and donors can come look at and see, what are the needs of this organization? And it doesn't necessarily have to be financial, but what are their current needs? So coming back to the management of the organization. So on here, we are listing, we're asking, do you have full-time staff? Maybe about 25% of the organizations in the hub are all volunteer-based. So you'll notice that some of these sections, management, it'll tell you that. Do they have paid staff? What's the capacity of the organization? It goes on to say, what type of policies do you have? Really it's back to those questions we talked about at the beginning of the presentation. What are your values, and does the organization align with that? Do they have these policies in place? Have they won any awards or have any certificates or certifications? The governance is about their board. So here we ask them to list all their board members. So you'll see in this section that you can go through and say, if you know anyone on the board that you want to reach out to about the organization or have questions, whether or not they've been through a board training. We have, and that means the Community Foundation's board offers a board training, or any other national or local board training that they have been through that is outside their organization. And I know we hosted one for Women's Giving Circle end of last year. So that is the type of training that we are talking about. From here, we're asking just stats about their board. And then what do their committees look like? Do they have strategic plans? Do they have succession plans for their organization? We go to their financials, and the financials makes these great charts for those of us that don't want to read the numbers, but for those of you that do like to read straight numbers, those are listed. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Those are listed right here. And this data, 19 will be pulled in February of this year, but you can see this is pulled directly from the IRS website and populated. So organizations are not able to change these. It's directly from their 990. And then we also have audited financials and the 990s available for you to download and look at them if you wanted to review them or wanted to go into more detail than's allowed here. We have a programs tab so that organizations can talk about what type of programs are you offering the community, what is your impact, what's out there. So the program tab, it looks different for every organization. And then we're talking about their development. You can see this is a new thing we've added, top funding sources. We're in the middle of producing this for organizations to tell us, how are you funded? Are you grant funded? Do you do special events? Then we ask what the yearly fundraising plan is. Do they have a signature event? Do they do social media fundraising? Do they participate in the Amazing Give? From there. And then the last thing is more details. So this more details section allows any other things you might want to know about the organization. Do they have a former name? Maybe it's an organization that you used to know by a different name. What's their identification number if you're trying to search for them in GuideStar, Charity Navigator? How long have they been around? And are they registered with the state to be able to solicit donations? Are they registered? Are they an IRS? What's their letter of determination proving they're a nonprofit if you wanted to see that? And that's typically something funders will look at. So there's also the ability for someone to come on the page and donate. And so when donations are made, these donations will go directly to the nonprofits. It does not come through the community foundation, it doesn't come through, it goes directly to the organizations. And of course you can then flip to their social media. So that's a quick overview of the hub. We're going to open up for some questions in a few minutes, but I want to talk about next how we're using what's in the Philanthropy Hub. So one of the quick things about the Philanthropy Hub, it allows us to do data collection and produce reports and state of the sector type reports for what's going on in North Central Florida. That's something we have not been able to do in the past. There's other communities that collect this data on nonprofits, but we've never been able to have it for just our community. So we're able to talk about who in our community is in a capital campaign. What are executive director and staff trends? What are board demographics? There are a few questions in Philanthropy Hub that are hidden, that we don't make public, just for, we're asking what their CEO salary range is, or we're asking what their board demographics, their staff demographics are. And those are some things that you are not outwardly facing, but we can use for data collection. Just some quick points that we've been able to pull in the last few months. We hope to do a yearly report when we are able to get our nonprofits information in here. So hopefully by the end of this year, we can produce a more detailed report. But so far, we've been able to show that of those 114 organizations registered, it's about $208 million in operating budgets. Like I said, 75% of the organizations do have paid staff. The CEO, executive director salary average right now is about $75,000 in our community. And more than 50% of local CEOs and directors have master's degrees or higher. And then right now, there's currently 6 nonprofits who are running a capital campaign, which is a campaign running to build a new building. We did add a new question that started in January asking who's going to be planning on doing one soon. So just some different points that we've been able to add to help us gather more data. We focused a lot on this last year on collecting data for staffing. And so we wanted to look at what is our staff makeup of our community. You can see that a nonprofit staff by gender, or 79% of all of those in the hub, those 75% of the organizations in the hub that do have paid staff, 79% of them are females versus 29% are males. Just wanted to share some of these stats. We did compare our stats to national statistics. And so Alachua County outperforms the U.S. In females in the CEO executive director role. So 58% of the executive directors in our community are female. 54% of local organizations with operating budgets more than $100,000 are run by female. And then it continues the same. 50% of local organizations with operating budgets of more than $500,000 are run by females, which definitely outperforms the U.S. in those statistics as well. We also, for the future of the Philanthropy Hub, we of course want to get some additional organizations added to the hub in the next year. We're going to continue to work with local funders on collaboration for using this tool, and again, try to produce an annual state of the sector report to provide these statistics to our community to really show the impact our nonprofit sector has in our community. And really, we're hoping donors like you, we know many of our donors are starting to use it. We hope many of you will start using it to really be more strategic with your giving out in the community. So here's the address. I'll stick it in the chat when we're done. It's thephilanthropyhub.org. You can also Google it. If you Google Philanthropy Hub Gainesville, it will pop right up. And I wanted to open it up for questions. I know that was a lot of information. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see all of your faces. And I wanted to see if anybody had any questions or thoughts. We always would love feedback on anything that maybe as a donor you would like to know from a nonprofit that you're not seeing on there, but just wanted to open it up we have about 10 minutes.
I had a quick
Sending
question.
out the slides, some of those points in terms of what to look for would be really helpful, just in terms of general stuff that you talked about.